Robert adjusted his coat as the cold wind blew through the quiet parking lot. The streetlights cast long shadows over the ATM, and the faint hum of a passing car was the only sound accompanying him. He inserted his card, glancing nervously around. It wasn't the safest neighborhood, but he had a bill to pay, and $40 was all he could afford to withdraw from his dwindling $50 balance. The ATM beeped. He pulled out the cash, folded it carefully, and slid it into his pocket. He walked briskly to his car, parked just a few feet away, eager to leave. As his hand reached for the door handle, he felt the cold steel of a gun press against the back of his head. "Don't move," a gruff voice growled. "Give me the money." Robert froze. His heart pounded and his breath quickened. Slowly, he turned his head to see a middle-aged man that looked crazed with wild eyes. "Listen," Robert said, raising his hands. "This is all I have. $40, that's it." "Don't lie to me!" the man shouted, his hands trembling as he gripped the gun. "Give me everything!" Robert hesitated. His instincts told him to comply, but something about the man's erratic behavior told him this could escalate quickly. The man raised the gun as if to strike him, but Robert ducked, and the gunman's swing went wide. In that split second, Robert lunged, grabbing the man's wrist. A struggle ensued, both men wrestling for control of the weapon. Bang! The gun fired into the air, the sound echoing through the empty parking lot. They grappled until the gun fell to the ground. Robert seized the opportunity, landing a solid punch to the man's face. The gunman stumbled and fell, clutching his nose, blood trickling between his fingers. Robert grabbed the gun, pointing it at the man to keep him at bay. "Stay down," he ordered, his voice steady despite his shaking hands. He then removed the magazine, disarmed the gun, and tossed the pieces a few feet away. Pulling out his phone, Robert dialed 911. "I was just attacked," he told the operator. "I've subdued the suspect and I'm waiting by my car. Please send officers quickly." Minutes later, flashing red and blue lights flooded the parking lot. 2 officers approached, guns drawn. "Drop the weapon!" one of them barked. "It's disarmed," Robert said calmly, raising his hands. "I'm the victim here. It's over there." The officers detained both men while they sorted out the situation. A search of the gunman, who identified himself as Billy, revealed Robert's wallet and the cash taken from him. Officer Brown, a calm and collected officer in his late 40s, uncuffed Robert and handed back his belongings. Billy was arrested for attempted robbery, read his rights, and placed in the back of a squad car. "You're free to go," Brown said, offering a small nod of apology. But before Robert could step away, another patrol car screeched into the lot. Out stepped Officer Miller, his gun drawn and aimed squarely at Robert. "Get on the ground, now!" Miller shouted, his face twisted with anger. Whoa, he's not the suspect," Officer Brown interjected, stepping between Miller and Robert. "Shut up!" Miller snapped, ignoring Brown entirely. "I said get on the ground!" Robert raised his hands higher. "I'm not resisting," he said carefully. "Please, listen to him." Miller's hand tightened on the trigger. "He's got a gun!" he screamed, and before anyone could react, he fired. Time seemed to slow. Officer Brown lunged, shielding Robert with his body. 2 shots hit Brown in the chest, and he crumpled to the ground. "Officer down!" someone shouted over the radio as chaos erupted. Robert knelt beside Brown, his hands hovering uncertainly over the officer's vest. "Are you okay?" Brown groaned, wincing. "Vest caught it," he managed to say through clenched teeth. "I'll be fine." Backup arrived within moments, and Miller was disarmed and taken into custody. Brown was rushed to the hospital, where doctors confirmed he'd suffered severe bruising but no permanent damage. The incident made headlines, sparking outrage. Miller was charged with attempted unaliving, among other offenses, and later convicted. His downfall came swiftly. Less than a year into his sentence, he passed away in an incident with a correctional officer in what was ruled an act of self-defense. As for Robert and Officer Brown, the ordeal forged an unlikely bond. Brown, deeply affected by the incident, reached out to Robert after his recovery. "I owe you more than an apology," Brown said during their first meeting outside the hospital. "You don't owe me anything," Robert replied. "You stepped in front of that bullet. That says enough." Together, they launched a program aimed at bridging the divide between law enforcement and the communities they served. Through open dialogues, workshops, and community outreach, they worked tirelessly to rebuild trust and understanding. In the end, Robert reflected on how a moment of terror had turned into something greater. "When right is done," he said during one of their first public forums, "it doesn't just change the situation, it changes people. And that's how we make the world better."